This is a recording of a real-time painting of a bird. I am bird artist Miles McMullan. Today I'm going to be painting this pygmy owl. I've just done the eyes and I've already done the drawing, which takes about 20 or 30 seconds. I usually draw quite rough, and there's a little bit of underpainting here to give it a bit of roundness, a bit of modulation. Okay, the bird that I'm painting is a pygmy owl. It's a ferruginous pygmy owl. Today I actually have a tripod in between me and the page that I'm painting on, so I'm sort of stretching a little bit. I'm at the limit of where my glasses reach and where my normal eyesight doesn't reach. So I'm working a little bit slower and a little bit less accurately than usual, but not much slower, just a little bit. Very, very little difference, really, altogether. Most of these paintings that I do for books, which are national field guides, I finish in anything between 10 and 20 minutes. Some of the birds take quite a long time to finish, especially ones with light markings on a dark background are quite work intensive in watercolour. Things like wood creepers and some of the elfin birds might take 20 to 25 minutes to paint. This bird today will take about 15, and we're filming it in real time. Okay, I'm working fairly fast, more quickly than people who normally do bird paintings, who normally do illustrative scientific illustration work, woodwork. And that's obviously an advantage because I'm doing such large books for such large avifaunas, and it's an advantage to work quite quickly. One of the things that takes time in my work is waiting for paint to dry so that I can do the next block of painting on top of it. So what I often do is work on 2 or 3 birds at once, so that whilst one is drying I can work with the other, and then I go back to the first one, which is now dry, and that would allow me to work a little bit quicker. Possibly this would take 2 or 3 minutes less, I suppose. While I'm waiting for things to dry around the face, I'm just going to do a little bit on the branch here, then I'll go back to here. I'm working in a painterly style, which is very unusual for scientific illustration. In other words, instead of finishing one area and then moving on to the next area to finish it, I'm working on the entire painting at once. I'm working on the tail, the head, the breast, the belly, everything I'm working on at once to finish them all at the same time. So I'm basically working from the page toward the viewer rather than from the top right down to the bottom left, the way that normally illustrators would work. And again, the advantage of this is it's what we call a painterly style. The advantage is that we are always in touch with what it will look like overall in the end. And I don't have to work in a systematic way, the way that an illustrator would. I will sometimes paint, for example, you can see on some parts of the bird I have a green brown, and other parts I have a red brown. Over the green brown I'll paint red brown, and over the red brown I'll paint green brown, and it just gives it a bit more depth and a bit more modulation. I'm putting in the eye shadow, not what humans call eye shadow, but it's the shadow on the top of the eyes there. I'm just mixing a little bit of colour here. At this time I'm going in with some body colour. So this isn't a purist watercolour. I'm using white body colour, white gouache it would be called here, for the little spots on the head. This is what takes a lot of time for these type of illustrations when we do have pale markings like this, because to mix body colour takes a little bit longer on the palette, and I have to mix it a little bit more frequently too. There I'm working a little bit wet on wet down there, which isn't ideal, but sometimes I just don't have time to do it any other way. A little bit of shadow in the branch. Of course, the reason why I can make books for such large avifaunas is because I can work fast, and it's basically about brushwork. An illustrative style does not require good brushwork, whereas a painterly style, the style in which I'm working now, requires quite good brushwork. You have to be quite accurate with your brush, which is difficult at the distance I am from the page working at the moment. You'll also notice that I work with my hand mostly in the air, which other illustrators wouldn't, and that allows for a certain amount more speed when I'm working. My hand is in the air for about half of the time when I'm working, even though my wrist may touch the desk. So I can work a lot quicker, which allows me to make these books with 5,000 or 4,000 illustrations. Just doing a little bit of work around the face. And you see, I move quite quickly from one part of the bird to another, filling in areas, just looking for little areas that need the colour which happens to be on my brush, rather than washing my brush frequently and working on one area only. I'm exhausting the paint which is on my brush all of the time by looking for areas which need the same colour. There's a little bit of shadow onto the bill there. These pygmy owls are diurnal owls. They hunt birds. They're among the smallest of all owls, but they take quite large prey in relation to their own size. And they're obviously quite agile because birds are among the hardest things to hunt. They're among the fastest things that a bird of prey can hunt or that an owl could hunt. A little bit of dark through the head here. It's beginning to take shape at the moment with we're beginning to see the pattern of dark and light as it will look in the final painting. I'm modulating little areas here because this is an illustration. I don't want it to look too chiaroscuro. I don't want one half of the bird to be totally dark and the other half to be totally light, as it would appear in strong sunlight, simply because that is not useful in a field guide to see a bird under very, very strong light conditions like that. It's one of the advantages that an illustrated guide has over a photographic field guide, is that we depict it in almost flatter light than is actually natural. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. The left-hand side of the bird and the right-hand side of the bird are under the same amount of light. It's a streaky breast, as with so many birds. The dark parts of the feather are in the centre of the feather, and the outside of the feather is light. On the barred tail here, I'm using brush strokes in the same direction as the barbs of the feather, which we can't really pick up in this video, I suppose, but on the final illustration we will pick it up if it's printed at the right resolution. And the dark criticism or vent there with the shadow of the branch under it. I want this branch to be quite dark as well. Most people think of wood as brown, so branches should be brown, but actually they're more, in the tropics we have so many pale branches that are almost pink or pale grey and colours like that. Modulation to the branch than we actually have for the bird. Again, I'm going to put a little bit more shadow on the bird so that these heavy brows above the bird's eyes, they cast a shadow and give it a little bit more dimension. We can go to we can make this look very, very realistic and dramatic, but my idea has always been to do things quickly so that I can actually make a living making these books, rather than to spend a long, long time over one drawing. I aim for sort of an optimal quality between very, very fast and very, very detailed. And I decide what is optimal in terms of usefulness, how useful the paintings can be to users of books in the field. Here I am with, I think this is the smallest brush I'm using today. Just giving a little bit of detail here. There's the little nostrils. One of the few things that stand out on the face apart from the eyes. A little bit more eyeshadow. I'm struggling to be accurate with this brush because I'm so far from the page, because the camera tripod is actually between me and the illustration, something that I'm not used to working with, but I may in the future. Just finish off what's left on that brush by using it on the branch. And I can water it in a little bit with my big brush too. And you can see it's quite wet. It's actually wrinkling up there at the moment. You can see that it's actually And I have to be careful not to put my hand in that while I'm painting out other areas. Some of the feathers are picking up a little bit of light there, but owls have very, very soft feathers. They don't have feathers which reflect a lot of light. They're able to fly without making noise because they have such soft feathers. Back onto my little brush. A bit of light onto the bird's eyes. These are called the facial discs that I'm filling in here. Not as pronounced as they are in other owls, but spotting and streaking on the forehead that all the pygmy owls have. We usually identify these birds by their song and not by their appearance because they all appear very, very similar. Some of the feathers around the throat. I'm coming quite close to finishing now. Some of this detailed work that I'm doing at the moment is simply to add detail and modulation, simply randomly adding little details to give the overall impression of play. And it doesn't really matter where they go. It's almost like a random type of detail filled in over the entire bird. Back with my big brush now, and what I'm actually doing here is, first of all, I'm adding a few more dark details, but I'm also making the whole plumage thing darker, and I'm also changing the overall color of the brown so that it's the same in the entire bird. You notice that some parts are more green brown, some parts are more red brown, like the part I'm working on now, and I'm changing it so that the brown looks the same the whole way over, even though some of it is red brown over green brown and some of it's green brown over red brown, but ultimately it adds interest if the final tone isn't arrived at by the same manner over the entire bird. This is a modulation just to give it 3 dimensions. Adding a little bit of dark edging. More rimmel. There's more detail on the bill. Quite fierce looking birds, despite being, this one's very close actually to life size almost. These birds are almost birds you could put in your hand and actually hide them in your clenched fist. The central barrel of the feather there, which may or may not be visible in real life, but it's a nice detail to add in the picture, just to give the impression of plumage. A little bit of white highlighting on the eye. These eyebrows, which are another feature that make the bird look fierce. You see I'm working quite quickly and staccato, roaming from one end of the bird to the other quite quickly there. And this is something illustrators, somebody trained as an illustrator wouldn't do this. This is essentially a painterly feature of the bird. I want this to be a little darker here. I'm going to add a little bit more dark to both the crescent and the branch. I want the branch to be darker too. So I've mixed a little sort of brown and blue, and I'm showing that the belly feathers of the bird are actually lapping over the top of the branch, covering the bird's feet in fact. Nobody identifies owls by their feet, so I've opted not to put them in, given that they take quite a bit of time, and this is really a video to show how it's possible to illustrate quite quickly and therefore make more detailed and bigger bird books than we have traditionally had. A little bit more shadow on the branch there as well. So we're nearly finished. Just going to show the feathers overlapping there. I have a little drop of water on my brush which may fall down any second. Oh, I got away with that, just and no more. And that's more or less us. I think that's us.